Hey, book lovers, movie buffs, and storytelling fanatics, welcome back to our cozy corner of the internet, where we dive deep into the stories that shape our souls. Today, we're peeling back the layers of one of the greatest novels ever written, The Godfather by Mario Puzo. This isn't just a book, it's a cultural earthquake, a sprawling saga of family, power, and loyalty that redefined literature and cinema. So, grab a steaming cup of coffee, maybe a cannoli or two, and let's embark on a 20-minute journey through the creation of this masterpiece. We'll explore Puzo's life, his struggles, the spark that birthed the novel, the gritty writing process, its explosive reception, and the iconic film that cemented its legend. This is a story of dreams, desperation, and destiny told with all the passion of a book YouTuber who lives for this stuff. Let's dive in. A kid from Hell's Kitchen, Mario Puzo's early life. Imagine New York City in the 1920s, Hell's Kitchen. To be exact, it's a gritty, bustling neighborhood packed with tenements, street vendors, and the hum of immigrant life. This is where Mario Puzo was born on October 15, 1920, to Italian parents who crossed the ocean from Campania, chasing the American dream. His father, Antonio, worked long hours as a railroad trackman, while his mother, Maria, was the family's backbone, a fierce, no-nonsense woman who ruled their cramped apartment with love and iron will. Mario later said his mother was the true Don Corleone of his childhood, a figure of strength whose influence would echo through his greatest work. Growing up in Hell's Kitchen wasn't easy. The streets were rough, the money tight, and the air thick with the stories of immigrants scraping by. But young Mario was different. He was a dreamer, always lost in books, sneaking into libraries to escape the chaos of his neighborhood. He'd read everything: Dickens, Dostoevsky, pulp novels, imagining a life beyond the tenements. School was his refuge, but he wasn't just a bookworm. He absorbed the rhythm of the streets, the whispered tales of local wise guys who held court in corner bars. Those stories, half myth, half truth, planted seeds he wouldn't harvest until decades later. World War II interrupted his path. Mario enlisted, serving as a clerk in Germany, not fighting but observing, collecting fragments of human stories. After the war, the GI Bill gave him a shot at college, City College of New York, where he studied writing and literature. He dreamed of being a novelist, a literary giant, but the world wasn't ready for him yet. He took odd jobs, writing for pulp magazines and working as a government clerk, all while churning out short stories. By his 30s, he was married to Erica, raising 5 kids, and barely making ends meet. His early novels, they were passion projects that fell flat. His debut, The Dark Arena, 1955, was a brooding tale of a soldier returning from war, inspired by his own experiences. Critics gave it a polite shrug, but it sold poorly. His second, The Fortunate Pilgrim, 1965, was a love letter to his mother and the Italian-American struggle, a lyrical, heartfelt story of immigrant life. Mario thought it was his masterpiece, but the world disagreed. It tanked, leaving him crushed. By his mid-40s, he was drowning in $20,000 of debt, a staggering sum for the time, supporting his family on a meager salary and freelance gigs. He was on the verge of giving up, his dream of literary greatness slipping away. Can you feel that weight? The man had talent, heart, and stories to tell, but the world just wasn't listening. The spark: why the Mafia? Why The Godfather? So how does a struggling writer go from quiet literary novels to a blockbuster crime saga? It wasn't art that drove Mario Puzo to write The Godfather, it was desperation. He needed money, fast. Growing up in Hell's Kitchen, he'd heard whispers about the Mafia, the local connected guys, the rumors of power and betrayal. He'd also written magazine pieces about organized crime, giving him a loose framework. Then, a publisher came knocking with a lifeline, a $5,000 advance to write a novel about the mob. Mario, skeptical but broke, took the deal. He later admitted he saw it as a quick buck, a commercial project to pay the bills. He famously said he wrote The Godfather below my abilities, expecting it to be a forgettable pulp novel. Oh, Mario, how wrong you were. But money wasn't the only spark. Beneath the surface, Mario was fascinated by power, how it's won, wielded, and lost. He saw the Mafia as a dark mirror of the American dream, immigrants building empires outside the system that shut them out. He drew inspiration from real-life figures like Lucky Luciano and Frank Costello, weaving their legends into fiction. His mother's fierce loyalty and pragmatism shaped the Corleone family's heart, especially Vito, the patriarch who balances love and ruthlessness. Mario's own struggles, his fight to provide for his family, his hunger for success, poured into Michael Corleone, a man torn between duty and destiny. What started as a cash grab became a deeply personal story, one that would resonate with millions. The writing process, a battle in the basement. Writing The Godfather wasn't a romantic endeavor. Picture Mario in his Long Island basement, hunched over a typewriter, surrounded by bills and the chaos of 5 kids upstairs. He wrote fast, 3 years for a 500-page epic, which is breakneck speed for a novel so dense. The process was grueling, not because of writer's block but because Mario didn't believe in the project. He was a literary snob at heart, ashamed of writing what he saw as lowbrow fiction. Publishers pushed him to amp up the violence and sex to hook readers, which clashed with his instincts. Yet, he couldn't help but pour his soul into it. The Corleones became real to him, their triumphs and tragedies mirroring his own. Researching the Mafia wasn't easy. Mario had no direct ties to organized crime, but Hell's Kitchen had given him a front-row seat to its mythology. He pored over FBI reports, newspaper clippings, and true crime books, piecing together the world of organized crime. He talked to people who knew things, though he kept it vague to avoid trouble. He wasn't out to glorify the mob, he wanted to dissect it, showing its brutality alongside its humanity. The result was a story that's as much about family as it is about crime. Vito's quiet strength, Michael's tragic arc, Kay's outsider perspective, they all feel alive, grounded in the universal struggles of love, loyalty, and betrayal. The biggest challenge? Doubt. Mario wrestled with self-consciousness, fearing the book would tarnish his literary dreams. He faced pressure to deliver a hit, knowing his family's future was on the line. Every page was a gamble, every chapter a step into uncharted territory. Yet, somehow, he crafted a world so vivid it would outlive him. The book's release, a cultural tsunami. When The Godfather hit shelves in 1969, it was like a bomb going off. The hardcover sold over 9 million copies in 2 years, dominating the New York Times bestseller list for 67 weeks, over a year. Readers couldn't get enough. Why? It wasn't just the allure of the Mafia, it was the story's soul. People saw themselves in the Corleones, their fierce loyalty, their flaws, their fight to control their fate in a chaotic world. From housewives to businessmen, everyone was hooked, passing dog-eared copies to friends. Critics, though, were split. Some praised its storytelling. The New Yorker called it a big, turbulent novel with undeniable power. Others turned up their noses, dismissing it as sensationalist pulp. The New York Review of Books grudgingly admired its energy but sniffed at its subject matter. Italian-American groups were outraged, arguing it stereotyped their community as criminals. Mario, himself Italian-American, defended it fiercely, insisting he was telling a human story, not a manifesto. He wasn't wrong. The book's themes of family and power transcended its setting, resonating across cultures. Its cultural impact was seismic. Phrases like "leave the gun," "take the cannoli," and "an offer he can't refuse" entered the lexicon. It redefined the Mafia in pop culture, moving them from cartoonish thugs to complex figures. It sparked debates about morality, ethnicity, and the American dream, cementing Mario Puzo as a household name. For a man who'd been broke just years before, it was a triumph, but the story was about to get even bigger. From page to screen, the birth of a cinematic legend. By 1970, Paramount Pictures had snapped up the rights to The Godfather for a modest $80,000, hoping for a quick, cheap gangster flick. Enter Francis Ford Coppola, a 31-year-old director with a few indie films under his belt and a career on shaky ground. Coppola didn't want a schlocky crime movie. He saw a Shakespearean epic about family and power. He fought the studio tooth and nail to make it his way, clashing with execs who wanted a modern setting, a smaller budget, and big-name stars. Coppola's vision was grand, a period piece, shot with gritty authenticity, centered on the Corleone's emotional core. Casting was a battleground. The studio pushed for Robert Redford or Ryan O'Neal as Michael Corleone, safe, bankable stars. Coppola insisted on Al Pacino, a relatively unknown stage actor with intense, soulful eyes. Pacino was Italian-American, perfect for Michael's quiet transformation, but the studio thought he was too short, too ethnic. Marlon Brando as Vito? An even bigger gamble. Brando was a faded legend, notorious for being difficult and coming off a string of flops. Coppola had to sneak him into a screen test, where Brando transformed himself with cotton in his cheeks and a raspy voice, becoming Vito on the spot. The studio relented, but tensions simmered. Mario Puzo co-wrote the screenplay with Coppola, a partnership fueled by mutual respect. They streamlined the novel's sprawling subplots, cutting Johnny Fontaine's Hollywood arc and Lucy Mancini's personal story to focus on the Corleones. The book's detailed flashbacks to Vito's youth became a few iconic scenes, like his rise in Little Italy. They toned down the novel's graphic violence and sex to fit the screen, but kept its emotional weight. One key difference? The film made Michael's descent more tragic. In the book, he's calculating, almost predestined for ruthlessness. In the film, his transformation from war hero to cold-blooded Don is heartbreaking, a slow erosion of his soul. Production was chaos. Paramount meddled constantly, threatening to fire Coppola mid-shoot. The Italian-American Civil Rights League protested, claiming the film defamed their community, even strong-arming the studio to remove the word Mafia from the script. Real-life mobsters, meanwhile, were thrilled. One even showed up on set, offering to advise. Brando was a wild card, improvising lines and clashing with execs. Pacino sprained his ankle during a chase scene, terrified he'd be replaced. The budget ballooned from $2 million to $6 million, and Coppola was a nervous wreck, convinced he'd never work again. Yet, the cast: James Caan as hot-headed Sonny, Robert Duvall as loyal Tom Hagen, Diane Keaton as conflicted Kay Geld, and cinematographer Gordon Willis's moody visuals brought the story to life. Fun fact, that iconic wedding scene? Shot in a real Staten Island neighborhood, with locals as extras, giving it an authentic, lived-in feel. And the horse's head? It was real, sourced from a slaughterhouse, a choice that horrified the cast but became one of cinema's most chilling moments. Through it all, Coppola's passion held it together, turning a troubled production into a miracle. The film's triumph and lasting legacy. When The Godfather premiered on March 15, 1972, it was a revelation. Audiences were spellbound, lining up around the block. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece. The New York Times called it stunning, praising its depth and humanity. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars, calling it a film of great performances and greater tragedy. It grossed over $250 million worldwide on a $6 million budget, becoming one of the highest-grossing films ever at the time. It won 3 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Actor for Brando, and Best Adapted Screenplay for Puzo and Coppola, out of 11 nominations. Book fans were thrilled, though some grumbled about cut subplots like Johnny Fontaine's arc. Mario himself was floored, saying the film was better than his novel, a rare author's confession. The film didn't just succeed, it reshaped cinema. It spawned 2 sequels, with Part 2, 1974, often called equal to or better than the original. It influenced everything from The Sopranos to Scarface, setting the template for the modern crime drama. Nino Rota's haunting score became iconic, and lines like "I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse" became part of the cultural DNA. It also sparked controversy. Italian-American groups continued to protest, but the film's universal themes of family and power won over audiences worldwide. Puzo's later life, a bittersweet victory. For Mario Puzo, The Godfather was a lifeline and a burden. The money poured in, letting him pay off his debts, move his family to a better home, and live comfortably. He became a Hollywood player, co-writing The Godfather Part 2, another Oscar winner, and scripts for films like Superman, 1978, but literary respect eluded him. His later novels, The Sicilian, 1984, The Last Don, 1996, sold well but never matched The Godfather's magic. He was forever the Godfather guy, tied to a story he'd once seen as a side hustle. It stung, but he embraced it, knowing he'd created something timeless. Mario died in 1999 at 78, leaving a legacy that looms large. The Godfather remains a touchstone. Its book and film still studied, quoted, and loved. It's a story of grit and genius, born from a man who turned his struggles into art. Mario Puzo, the kid from Hell's Kitchen, didn't just write a novel, he built a world that still holds us captive. Thanks for joining me on this epic journey. Friends, if this fired you up, dust off your copy of The Godfather, dive into its pages, or rewatch the film for the millionth time. What's your favorite moment? Vito's wisdom, Michael's fall, or that cannoli line? Drop it in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep reading, keep dreaming, and maybe, just maybe, leave the gun, take the cannoli. Ciao!